Syria in last 24 hours, terrorists suffer heavy casualties in clashes with army in southwestern Homs. Tehran, FNA. The Syrian army repelled a major attack of the ISIL terrorist group after it engaged in heavy fighting with the remaining pockets of the militants in Al-Mahasa region in southwestern Homs on Tuesday. The army units fended off a heavy offensive of a group of ISIL terrorists in Al-Mahasa region south of the town of Al-Qaryatayn in southwestern Homs, killing and wounding most of the militants. In the meantime, other units of the army stormed ISIL's positions in Humaima region in Homs' eastern Badia desert, killing a number of the militants. Meantime, the Syrian army continued its military advances in other parts of Syria over the past 24 hours. Tens of terrorists were killed and dozens more were injured during the Syrian army's operations in provinces across Syria. Homs. The Syrian army troops engaged in fierce clashes with remaining pockets of the ISIL terrorists in Al-Mahasa region in southwestern Homs on Tuesday and repelled their attack. The army units fended off a heavy offensive of a group of ISIL terrorists in Al-Mahasa region south of the town of Al-Qaryatayn in southwestern Homs, killing and wounding most of the militants. In the meantime, other units of the army stormed ISIL's positions in Humaima region in Homs' eastern Badia desert, killing a number of the militants. Also, the Syrian fighter jets pounded ISIL's positions and movements in eastern Homs, inflicting major losses on the terrorists. The Syrian army troops managed to push the terrorists back from one more region in northern Homs on Monday after a fresh wave of the terrorist group's heavy offensives that followed the U.S.-led coalition's missile attacks on Syria on Saturday. The army men engaged in fierce clashes with the al-Nusra Front, also known as Fatah al-Sham Front or the Levant Liberation Board, in northern Homs and seized control over the village of al-Hamrat. Also, the army's artillery units pounded the terrorists' positions and movements in al-Amariya, Ain Hussein and Ezidin regions in northern Homs. In the meantime, the Syrian Air Force bombed heavily the positions and movements of the terrorists in the villages of Al-Hamrat, Salim, Al-Hawayr and Al-Qanatarat between southeastern Hama and northeastern Homs. Tens of terrorists were killed and their military equipment were destroyed in the attacks. Terrorist groups stormed the army positions in Homs after the US, the UK and France launched heavy missile attacks on the country's territory on Saturday. Hama. The Syrian army troops fended off a heavy offensive of the al-Nusra Front and managed to capture more regions in a rapid counterattack in southeastern Hama on Wednesday. The army men repelled the al-Nusra Front's attack on Tal Dara and Qaba al-Kurdi's regions and the villages of Jarjisa from al-Sadahiyat region in southeastern Hama, inflicting major losses on the terrorists. The army men further carried out a rapid counterattack and managed to push the terrorists back from Qanatarat water pumping station that supplies drinking water to the town of al-Salamiya and its outskirts. In the meantime, the army's artillery and missile units pounded terrorists' positions in the villages of al-Zara and Talf in southern Hama, killing and wounding a number of the gunmen. An Arab media outlet said on Tuesday that the terrorist groups, deployed in Hama-Salamiya-Homs Triangle, have called on the Syrian army for reconciliation talks after frequent defeats in recent days. The Arabic-language Al-Watan Daily reported that the army has temporarily halted its operation in southeastern Hama and northern Homs to pave the ground for the start of reconciliation talks with the militants that have applied for a peace agreement. The Daily further said that the militants have demanded local activists to mediate and end the army assault amid the government boss's rapid advances in southeastern Hama and northern Homs. Al-Watan went on to say that the army has remarkably advanced against the terrorists in the town of al-Rast and that is a main bastion of the militants. In the meantime, the Syrian Air Force carried out several combat flights over terrorists' positions and movements in the towns and villages of Al-Qanatarat, Dirfowl, Ezidin, Al-Hamrat and Al-Qantara, killing or wounding a number of militants and destroying their vehicles. Damascus militants and the Syrian Army and Russian Reconciliation Center reached a final agreement over the evacuation of the gunmen from the small but strategic town of Al-Dumair northeast of Damascus province. The representatives of militants, deployed in Al-Dumair, have inked an agreement with the army and Russian center to leave the region. The militants' destination has not been specified yet. Spokesman for the militants Ahmad Al-Abdu Saad Saif said that a meeting is in the offing to specify the gunmen's destination. Local sources reported that the militants have rejected relocation to Idlib province and called for a movement to the regions under the control of the Turkey-backed Euphrates River. Meantime, militants of Aswad al-Sharqiya have demanded relocation to regions under Ar al-Sham's control in northern Syria. Meantime, the Syrian army's artillery and missile units opened heavy fire at ISIL's strongholds in southern Damascus on Tuesday in preparation for a final major assault to put an end to the terrorist group's presence near the capital. The army has dispatched more troops and military hardware to regions near ISIL's positions in southern Damascus province. Over 6,000 army soldiers along with a large volume of military equipment are standing for the codename to launch a long-expected large-scale operation against ISIL. There as the Syrian army aircraft threw thousands of leaflets over militant-held neighborhoods in Daraa, a city on Tuesday to inform civilians willing to leave the area to evacuate the region as terrorist groups ready to kick off an assault against the Damascus forces in the province. The aircraft dropped thousands of leaflets over Daraa city to inform civilians of safe corridors toward the regions that are under the army's control. In the meantime, field sources reported the terrorist group's preparedness to launch a heavy attack against the army in the province, adding that differences are on the rise among the militants over the attack on government forces.